telling this now because enough time has passed that I can talk about it without feeling like I'm still there. But the truth is, some nights when everything is quiet, I still feel like I never really left. This happened 3 years ago. I was 26 at the time, working seasonal construction jobs and taking whatever odd work I could find in between. It wasn't a great period of my life. I wasn't depressed exactly, but I was tired in a way that sleep didn't fix. My head was constantly loud, thoughts overlapping, memories replaying, worries stacking on top of each other. The only thing that ever shut it all up was being alone in the wilderness. I'd been hiking and camping since I was a kid. My dad got me into it early. Navigation, knots, reading terrain. Those things felt more natural to me than social situations ever did. So when summer came around, I decided to disappear for a few days into the San Juan National Forest in Colorado. Not a popular area, not a campground, just far enough out that I wouldn't see anyone unless I went looking for them. I didn't tell many people where I was going, just my sister, and even then I kept it vague. I parked my truck at the end of a poorly marked Forest Service road late in the afternoon. The road itself looked like it hadn't been used in months. Grass growing up through the center, branches hanging low enough to scrape the roof. There were no other vehicles, no fresh tire tracks, nothing to suggest anyone else had been out there recently. I grabbed my pack, locked the truck, and started hiking. The trail was visible at first, but after maybe half a mile, it faded into something more like a suggestion than an actual path. I wasn't worried. I had a compass, a GPS unit, and paper maps. I followed the terrain instead, natural contours, breaks in the trees, the kind of navigation you trust when you've done this long enough. After about an hour and a half, I found the clearing. It sat near a shallow creek that had clearly been stronger at some point in the past. The water still moved, slow and quiet, weaving between stones, worn smooth over years. There was just enough flat ground for a tent, maybe 10 or 12 feet across, surrounded by tall pines that blocked out most of the sky. The thing that struck me immediately was how clean it was. No trash, no fire rings, no broken branches, no footprints. It didn't feel abandoned, it felt avoided. At the time, I brushed that thought off. People romanticize untouched places, but the reality is most wilderness areas get traffic, whether you see it or not. Still, something about that clearing felt preserved, like it had been deliberately left alone. I set up my tent, gathered some fallen wood, and made a small fire. As evening settled in, the forest grew quieter than I was used to. No wind through the trees, no insects buzzing, no distant animal calls, just the occasional crack of the fire and the steady movement of water. It was peaceful, too peaceful. That first night passed without incident. I slept lightly but comfortably, waking once or twice out of habit. Nothing unusual, no sounds, no movement. The next morning I made coffee, ate a freeze-dried breakfast, and decided to explore the area. That's when things started to feel wrong. Every direction I walked in eventually curved back toward the clearing. At first I thought I was just unconsciously circling. It happens more than people realize. So I started paying close attention, using my compass, marking trees, following straight bearings. Didn't matter. No matter how intentionally I walked away, the terrain subtly guided me back. A fallen log here, a dense patch of brush there, a slope that forced me to angle right instead of straight. Nothing obvious, nothing dramatic, just enough to redirect me. After a few hours, I found myself standing at the edge of the clearing again, staring at my tent like it had been waiting for me. I laughed it off, told myself the forest was just dense, that I was overthinking things. But that uneasy feeling stuck with me. That night, after the fire died down, I crawled into my tent and lay there listening to the silence. It felt heavier now, like the forest was holding its breath. I don't know how long I'd been lying there when I heard it. Footsteps. Not leaves crunching, not branches snapping. Bare feet on dirt. Slow. Measured. Intentional. They moved around the clearing once, wide circle, no rush. My body locked up. My hand went straight to the knife I kept beside my sleeping bag. I told myself it had to be an animal, but I knew better. Animals don't walk like that. They don't pace. I focused on breathing quietly, barely moving. Then I heard my name, not whispered, not shouted, spoken normally, calmly, like someone standing a few feet away addressing me directly. I didn't respond. The footsteps stopped right outside my tent. Whoever or whatever, it was stood there for a long time. Long enough that my legs started to cramp from the tension. Then it spoke again. "You don't have to hide. You already found us." That sentence didn't sound threatening. It sounded matter of fact, like a statement of fact. I didn't sleep that night. When morning finally came, I unzipped the tent slowly and stepped out, expecting something, anything, to still be there. The clearing looked normal, but the ground told a different story. Bare footprints surrounded my tent, at least 4 different sizes. They hadn't trampled anything. They hadn't disturbed my gear, just observed. Near the creek, carved into a tree, were symbols I didn't recognize. Deep cuts, deliberate, fresh. That was enough. I packed up immediately and started heading back toward my truck. And that's when I realized the trail wasn't there anymore. The forest looked the same. Same trees, same light, same terrain. But the path I had taken in was gone. Instead, there were several narrow trails branching off in different directions, each one subtly marked with the same symbols carved into the tree. I chose one at random and started walking. After maybe 20 minutes, I heard movement behind me. Not running, not chasing, following. I didn't look back. My phone had no signal. My GPS spun uselessly, constantly recalibrating. I walked until my legs burned and my mouth went dry. And then, suddenly, I burst out of the trees and onto the service road, right next to my truck. The relief nearly dropped me to my knees. I rushed to the driver's side, ready to leave without even thinking. That's when I saw it. Carved into the dust on my hood were the same symbols, and beneath them, written with a finger, "You can leave now." I drove away without looking back. I never reported it, because some places don't want witnesses, only visitors. My wife and I still argue about whose idea that trip was. Sometimes it's said with a laugh, like an old joke we've repeated too many times. Sometimes it ends with one of us staring out the window, the other pretending to scroll through a phone. But deep down, in the quiet moments neither of us likes to talk about, we both know the truth. We were trying to fix something without admitting it was broken. This happened last fall. We'd been married for 4 years. No kids, no dramatic arguments, just a slow, invisible drift that happens when 2 people stop talking about what really weighs on them. Our days were full of work screens, tired evenings, and conversations that never went deeper than schedules and grocery lists. We weren't unhappy, but we weren't close either. So when one of us, honestly, it doesn't matter who, suggested a weekend camping trip, it felt like the right idea. No phones, no reception, no distractions, just us, a tent, and somewhere quiet enough to hear our own thoughts. Northern California felt like a safe choice. Familiar forests, cold lakes, the kind of nature that feels calm, not threatening. We picked a small first-come, first-served campground near a lake. It wasn't popular, didn't have flashy photos online, and that's exactly why we liked it. When we arrived late in the afternoon, the place felt strangely empty. No cars in the lot, no smoke rising from fire pits, no distant voices or laughter, just tall trees, still water, and the soft sound of wind moving through branches. Then we noticed it. At the far end of the campground stood a single tent, dark green, already set up. No movement inside, no vehicle parked nearby. It looked abandoned, but not old, like whoever owned it had stepped away and never come back. It gave me a brief, uncomfortable feeling in my stomach, but I ignored it. People hike. People wander. People leave tents behind all the time. We chose a site closer to the tree line, far enough from that tent to feel alone, but still close enough to see the lake through the trees. We pitched our tent, unpacked our gear, and as the sun started to sink, something unexpected happened. We relaxed. That evening was good, better than we'd expected. We cooked over the fire, the flames reflecting in my wife's eyes. We shared a bottle of cheap wine and talked, really talked, for the first time in months. About old memories, about stupid jokes, about how tired we both were. For a few hours it felt like we remembered who we used to be. Around midnight, the cold set in. We decided to turn in. Before crawling into the tent, I made sure the fire was completely out. I didn't just kick dirt over it. I poured water until the embers hissed and turned into black, muddy sludge. I stirred the ashes with a stick, watching carefully for any glow. Nothing. Satisfied, we zipped up the tent and fell asleep to the quiet lap of water against the shore. I woke up at 3:12 a.m. I know the exact time because the first thing I noticed wasn't a sound. It was the light. A warm orange glow flickering across the thin fabric of the tent. At first, my half-asleep brain tried to explain it away. Moonlight, a dream, maybe another camper lighting a fire. Then the light shifted. Firelight. Our fire pit was burning again, not a few sparks, not leftover embers. A full, steady fire, strong flames rising into the night, casting long, moving shadows between the trees. My heart started pounding so hard I was sure my wife could hear it. I reached over and shook her awake, whispering her name. She turned toward the tent wall, saw the glow, and went completely still. Neither of us spoke. We stared through the mesh window, barely breathing. Then we heard footsteps. Slow, careful. More than one set. They moved around the fire pit, crunching softly on dirt and pine needles. We could hear voices too, low, conversational. At first, relief washed over me, other campers. People being inconsiderate, annoying, but normal. That relief lasted only seconds. The voices weren't right. It wasn't a language I recognized, but it didn't sound foreign either. The rhythm was off. Words came out too evenly, with pauses in strange places, like someone had heard human speech but never learned how it was supposed to sound. One of them laughed. It wasn't loud, just a short, dry sound that made my wife grip my arm so hard it hurt. Then someone poked the fire with a stick. We heard the crackle, saw sparks fly. They were using our fire like it belonged to them. We lay there frozen. 10 minutes passed, maybe more. No one approached the tent. They just stood there talking, laughing quietly, warming themselves. I kept waiting for one of them to turn toward us. Then, without warning, the voices stopped. The footsteps moved away, slowly, deliberately toward the lake. The fire began to die down. We didn't sleep after that. At first light, we packed up without speaking and drove straight to the ranger station. We told the ranger someone had entered our campsite during the night and restarted our fire. He listened carefully, then checked his clipboard, then his computer. His expression changed. "There's no one else registered at that campground," he said. We mentioned the tent we'd seen. He frowned. "There hasn't been another camper there in over a week." Back at our site, everything looked exactly as we'd left it. The fire pit was cold, wet ash, no disturbed soil, except for one thing: bare footprints. They led from the lake, stopped inches from our tent door, then turned around and went back the same way. We left immediately. 2 weeks later, my wife woke me up crying. She said she smelled smoke. Our bedroom smelled like cold ash and something else, like someone else had just been there.